House of the Dragon tells the story of the succession crisis within the Targaryen dynasty. The current king, Viserys, claimed his crown for the Great Council of Harrenhal in the year 101, basically 200 years before the events in Game of Thrones. At Harrenhal, over 1,000 lords assembled and cast their votes on who they thought should be the next in line, as the current king Jaehaerys' sons had both died, but both had a child. Rhaenys, the daughter of Jaehaerys' first son, and Viserys, the eldest son of Jaehaerys' second son, Baelon. The council overwhelmingly voted for Viserys, choosing a man in favour of a woman, so now the precedent is set that the eldest male relative to the king should inherit the throne. Fast forward 14 years and Viserys is 9 years into his reign, with a daughter called Rhaenyra. Despite this, he still longs for a son, and during childbirth, Viserys makes the decision to sacrifice his wife's life in order to try and save the baby during childbirth. Sadly, the newborn prince would pass moments later. This now leaves Daemon Targaryen, the younger brother of Viserys, as his heir. Before Baelon's birth and death, Daemon was the heir presumptive. This means that he would be next in line unless Viserys produced a son that would then supersede Daemon's claim. Now, Daemon. He's a bit of a wild man and totally drank the Targaryen superiority Kool-Aid. He's currently the leader of the City Watch, basically the King's Landing Police Department, and he's been dishing out his version of harsh justice. Daemon effectively scares the crap out of the current Hand of the King, Otto Hightower, and various other lords because he's not one for court politics and takes no shit. After the funeral of Queen Aemma and Prince Baelon, Otto sends his daughter, Alicent, who is also Rhaenyra's best friend, to help comfort Viserys. Whilst Viserys is grieving over his wife and son, Daemon is in a brothel with his city watch and raises a toast to Baelon and dubs him the heir for a day. Word of this reaches Otto Hightower, who then informs Viserys. This leads to Viserys disinheriting his brother and booting him out of King's Landing, and naming his daughter, Rhaenyra, heir to the Iron Throne. He calls upon the Lords of Westeros to attend King's Landing and swear oaths of fealty to Rhaenyra. Further to this, Viserys tells Rhaenyra of Aegon's dream, a prophecy that the Targaryens should unite the realm against the coming darkness. We could have personally done without this because we all know how that ends up. Before Daemon departs from King's Landing, he steals a dragon egg that was meant for Prince Baelon and heads to Dragonstone. 6 months pass, and yes, get ready because there's going to be a lot of time skipping in this first season, and the realm is faced with an issue in the Stepstones. Basically, a really important shipping lane, and it's messing with Corlys Velaryon's ability to bring in trade. Now, a quick note about Corlys. He's the husband of Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was, because the lords rejected her claim at the Council of Harrenhal. He's also the most powerful lord in Westeros with the biggest fleet. This is because he's able to bring in trade and control much of its flow into Westeros from around the world. He's this generation's version of Tywin Lannister, and he's also on the Small Council as the Master of Ships. His heritage is also that of Valyria, hence the silver and white hair. However, his family were not dragon riders like the Targaryens, but his marriage with Rhaenys has made sure the next generation of Velaryons will not face that issue. Anyway, this dude from the Three Cities called the Crab Feeder is sinking any ships passing through the Stepstones, and this is beginning to really mess with Corlys, who wants to detach an army immediately to help deal with the issue. Viserys, though, doesn't want to risk causing a war, so shoots down the idea. This is a constant problem with Viserys, he often avoids conflict. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra's interruptions in the Small Council have relegated her to picking the next member of the Kingsguard, as there's currently a vacancy. There's all these great houses that press their claim, but none of them have any real experience outside of a lowly knight called Simpton Cole, who does have battle experience against the Dornish and also beat Daemon in a tournament earlier on in the year. Otto protests because he sees this position as a way to gain favour with a powerful house, whilst Rhaenyra is aiming for experience over value, as a Kingsguard is tasked with protecting the king, pretty much the Secret Service. This hilariously will bite Rhaenyra in the ass and kind of works out for Otto in the long run. Funny how things work out. Whilst that's happening, Alicent's continued to speak with Viserys and offer him companionship. Viserys is also being advised to remarry and produce more heirs, considering Rhaenyra's the next in line, but if something was to befall the two of them, then it's Daemon. Speaking of which, Daemon's now occupying Dragonstone, kinda illegally. The deal with Dragonstone is that it possesses the title of the Prince of Dragonstone, and its holdings are usually given to the heir of the Iron Throne, similar to how the title of the Prince of Wales is given to the next in line of the British monarchy. Daemon, kinda chilling on Dragonstone, is sort of sticking his finger up at Viserys and the Small Council. You'll see that a lot of things in Westeros kind of revolve around appearances. Back at King's Landing, Rhaenys and Corlys proposed to Viserys that he marry their 12-year-old daughter. It's gross, but kind of a norm back then. This would solve a lot of issues though. It combines the two most powerful families in Westeros, acts as a makegood to Rhaenys about never being crowned queen, and sort of reunites the line. To deal with Daemon's occupation on Dragonstone, Otto Hightower travels to the island along with a small retinue to demand Daemon leave and return the stolen egg. Things heat up, but before it can boil over, Rhaenyra arrives and calms the situation before reclaiming the egg. Because of this though, Viserys sees the need to produce more heirs, because if Rhaenyra had died, then he has no heirs, so he needs some spares. With that, he announces to the small council and Rhaenyra that he will be remarrying to none other than Alicent Hightower. This doesn't go down well at all, with Rhaenyra feeling betrayed by her best friend, and Corlys viewing this as another slap in the face and leaves for Driftmark. Once at Driftmark, Corlys hatches a plan with Daemon Targaryen to deal with the crab feeder. This plan would benefit Corlys because his shipping lanes reopen and Daemon is given more glory and acclaim, showing that he's a man capable of dealing with difficult issues, someone who can fight and can lead. 3 years pass, and Alicent has given birth to a son Aegon and is also heavily pregnant with a second child. The very existence of Aegon puts pressure on Rhaenyra's claims, with Otto's elder brother telling him he should suggest to Viserys about changing the line of succession to pass to Aegon rather than Rhaenyra. The princess herself isn't really feeling the love from the people as they arrive at a great hunt, where everyone cheers for Aegon. It is his second birthday after all, but it further alienates Rhaenyra and her father Viserys, who have a public bust-up and she storms off into the woods, followed by Sir Criston. Otto then suggests that Viserys should marry Rhaenyra to Aegon and is promptly laughed out the room. Not because it's gross for a sister and brother to marry, that's kind of the Targaryen spiel, but because Aegon's only bloody 2 and it's going to take him a while to catch up. Viserys also dismisses some dweeb from Castle Rock who wants to marry Rhaenyra as well. This whole hunting trip is also a way to try and use superstition to force Viserys to change his mind. There's rumours that a white stag is roaming the lands, a symbol of royalty before the Targaryen dynasty established itself. By associating that symbol with Aegon's birthday, they're trying to force the idea that replacing Rhaenyra with Aegon is the symbol of the gods. But that turns to shit because they can't find the white stag and end up killing some normal stag instead. In rather embarrassing fashion, I must say. You wouldn't see Robert killing an animal like this. Rhaenyra though, she manages to kill some game for herself in the middle of the night with Simpton Cole. Ironically, Rhaenyra does spot the white stag, but lets it go and returns to the hunting party covered in blood. This shows her strength and contrasts with Viserys' own sanitized hunt. Back at King's Landing, Otto tells Alicent that the Westerosi lords will prefer Aegon as king over Rhaenyra, and this will cause a rift in future. Viserys reassures Rhaenyra that she'll still be his heir, but she needs to find a match. And if she won't accept one made by him, she needs to find one herself to help strengthen her claim on the throne. Alicent then persuades Viserys to send help to Daemon and Corlys in the Stepstones, whose campaign to defeat the crab feeder is failing miserably, with the crab feeder using guerrilla tactics to limit Daemon's ability to use Caraxes to win the war. Viserys sends a messenger to inform them that he will be sending aid, but Daemon takes this the wrong way, beats the stuffing out of the messenger, and rows out to the crab feeder's island and feigns surrender, luring the crab feeder's army out before launching an attack and eventually overcoming the crab feeder, first ending the battle for the Stepstones it only took 3 bloody years to solve. With victory secured, Daemon returns to King's Landing as the King of the Narrow Sea, whilst Rhaenyra is spending time at Storm's End looking for a suitable match, with little success. In the throne room, Daemon renounces his title and crown and swears fealty to his brother, which helps reconcile the pair as they celebrate. Later that night, Daemon takes Rhaenyra on a visit around King's Landing and they end up in a brothel where Daemon begins to seduce his niece. So yeah, look, let's call a spade a spade. Daemon was pretty much grooming his niece from the first episode we saw them together, and it's pretty creepy, no matter how you slice it. Rhaenyra is totally down to get it on though, but Daemon flakes out and bolts. Still feeling hot and bothered, Rhaenyra seduces her sworn shield to Simpton Cole, and they sleep together instead. Daemon and Rhaenyra's visit to the brothel did not go unnoticed, and word reaches Otto Hightower, who then informs Viserys. He takes the news rather well. Not really. Alicent, having overheard the conversation, speaks to Rhaenyra, who denies having sex with Daemon. Daemon, however, is claiming he did have sex when confronted by Viserys in the throne room, who once again boots him out of King's Landing in disgust. Alicent, though, does believe Rhaenyra is still a virgin and tells Viserys as much. who then meets with Rhaenyra and demands she marry Laenor Velaryon to make sure there's no more scandals. This helps bridge the growing gap between the Velaryons and the crown, but Rhaenyra has her own toll. She wants Otto Hightower out of the picture, and Viserys dismisses him. Though Alicent does believe Rhaenyra, Viserys still has his maester concoct some immunity for Rhaenyra. Basically Plan B. Having left King's Landing, Daemon visits his estranged wife, Rhea Royce, in the Vale and effectively murders her, putting him back on the market for a wife. Viserys and Rhaenyra travel to Driftmark, confirm the match between Rhaenyra and Laenor. Side note, Laenor's gay, Rhaenyra knows, but lets him know that as long as they perform their royal duty and produce some heirs, she's happy for him to have his lovers, and she hers. Happy days. At King's Landing, Larys Strong, the son of new Hand of the King Lionel Strong, is acting as a little gossip and tells Alicent he hopes Rhaenyra has recovered from her recent sickness. On their return to King's Landing, Sir Criston has his first meltdown as he begs Rhaenyra to throw away the crown and run away with him to Essos. She flatly rejects him and says they've got a good thing going. Let's not throw it away, but simp's gonna simp. Alicent speaks to Criston upon his return and she is just asking some probing questions and he spills his bloody guts to Alicent and confesses to sleeping with Rhaenyra. Alicent is devastated by this news as she feels betrayed as she believed Rhaenyra's lies over her own father. At the pre-wedding feast, I don't know why you have one of those, Viserys gives a speech to his guests, but it's rudely interrupted not once but twice, with the second one being a shot across the bow for Rhaenyra as Alicent arrives in a green dress. It's basically announcing to everyone at court that she represents House Hightower and that there's friction within the royal family. Alicent coolly refers to Rhaenyra as daughter, so you know things are broken now. It does get better though, because Criston loses his shit when Laenor's lover Joffrey speaks to him about their upcoming arrangement. This is all too much for Criston, who beats Joffrey to death, ruining the whole vibe. Unless she was a Dothraki. Laenor and Rhaenyra are wed that night and Alicent stops Simpton Cole from committing suicide. We now jump further into the future by another 10 years. Rhaenyra gives birth to a healthy baby boy, who along with his other brothers are the spitting image of their dad. No, not that one. Alicent is not buying this obvious bastardry and asks why Viserys continues to turn a blind eye to the matter. Alicent's sons, Aegon and Aemon, train with Rhaenyra's sons, Jacaerys and Lucerys, under the ever-protective eye of Simpton Cole. His methods are a little over the top and he clearly hates Rhaenyra's boys and pushes them hard in training and provokes their real father, Harwin Strong, to protect them and in turn attack Simpton Cole brutally. With both Viserys and Lyonel watching this, Lyonel tries to resign his appointment as Hand of the King, but Viserys refuses, much to the disappointment of Alicent, who continues to chastise Viserys for being blind to what everyone else can clearly see. Lyonel decides that his son Harwin needs to leave King's Landing to help stop the rumours persisting and escorts him back to Harrenhal. Rhaenyra also thinks it's a wise move to leave King's Landing, so takes her family to Dragonstone to keep them safe from the rumours at court. Alicent, who is desperate to get her father back in court, asks Larys Strong for help, who promptly has his father and brother killed in a tragic fire. That's one way of saving money on birthday presents. Oh, and before I forget, everyone's favourite bad boy Prince Daemon is out travelling with his wife Laena, who you might remember as the 12-year-old who Rhaenys tried to marry off to Viserys earlier on. Daemon and Laena have 2 daughters. The daughters are clearly closer to looking like what a child born of Targaryen and Velaryon bloodlines should look like. Even Ned wouldn't need a book to tell him that one. Tragically though, Laena dies during childbirth. Well, actually she dies by dragonfire, verse dying in childbirth, but you get the point. Which means our favourite bad boy is single and back on the market again. With Laena's death, everyone travels to Driftmark to attend her funeral. Sorry Lionel, we got more important child bodies to deal with. And during the ceremony, Vaemond, who is Corlys' younger brother, is rather overt in his belief that Rhaenyra's children are not true Velaryons. Daemon decides to have a chuckle at the balls on this guy, which is fucked in 2 ways, because he's laughing during his wife's bloody funeral. Anyway, this whole situation is bloody uncomfortable. You have the awkwardness of Rhaenys being around her grandsons, Daemon and Rhaenyra making lover eyes at one another, Jace and Lucerys unsure of how to act because they're grieving the loss of their father, who isn't their father, Viserys trying to reconcile with Daemon, Laenor staring into the ocean overcome with sorrow, Larys trying to speak with Alicent, who wants nothing to do with, let me Google this parasite committing maniac. Oh yeah, and you might notice Viserys looks a little rough. That's because he has some form of leprosy, but it's also a metaphor for him being an unfit king, the toll it's taken on his body and such. Oh, and my boy Otto is back in play as the reanointed Hand of the King. Rhaenyra and Daemon have a walk on a beach, confess their feelings for each other, and have sex on the beach. Aemond, Alicent's second son, currently has no dragon, unlike Aegon, Jace, Luke, Helena, and decides he's going to correct this by claiming Vhagar, the dragon of Laena. This doesn't go down well with Rhaena, who believes that Vhagar was stolen from her, and so Aemond gets into a scuffle with a couple of strong boys and Laenor's daughters, which ends with Aemond losing an eye, as you do. Viserys holds court and Alicent wants an eye for an eye. Viserys shuts it all down, and the open secret of Lucerys and Jace being bastards is spoken out loud. Viserys threatens that anyone who doubts the heritage of his grandsons will have their tongues ripped out. Alicent's not happy and attempts to take Lucerys' eye for herself, but Rhaenyra stops her and gets a cool scar for herself instead. Aemond calms the room by saying he's cool with the loss of an eye because he claimed the dragon, and he's going to burn these bastards alive himself. Okay, he didn't say the last bit, but you know he was thinking it. That's not all though. Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Laenor conspire to fake Laenor's death so he can go live his life how he wants in the 3 cities of Essos, and Rhaenyra and Daemon can finally get married. Nobody else knows this, so Rhaenys and Corlys get to believe their son was brutally murdered days after burying their daughter, whilst Daemon and Rhaenyra go get married. Nothing suspicious about this at all. Get that time machine out because we're heading 6 years further into the future in our final time skip. Corlys is injured during his campaign fighting in the Stepstones, again, so Vaemond, his younger brother, goes to court to petition for himself to be named heir of Driftmark, citing that Lucerys is illegitimate. In response to this, a heavily pregnant Rhaenyra, along with her husband and 4 sons, travel to King's Landing to fight these allegations again. Due to Viserys' declining health, Alicent and Otto rule King's Landing in his stead, so the deck is looking stacked against Rhaenyra's family in fighting these allegations as they will be claiming innocence to Otto Hightower. Vaemond pushes his case and talks some mad shit and really enjoys himself. When it comes to Rhaenyra to present her case, Viserys arrives in what is perhaps the best scene of the entire show. I fucking loved this scene. Anyway, Viserys settles matters, again, and reiterates his threat that anyone who doubts this will have their tongues removed. Vaemond doesn't give a fuck and starts letting loose, calling Rhaenyra a whore and her children bastards! I loved that. Viserys wants to cut Aemond's tongue out himself, but Daemon has other ideas. Look at Edgelord Aemond here, barely keeping his admiration for his uncle under wraps. Anyway, they all decide to play Happy Families later that night for a feast. But sick note Viserys has to go to bed and all hell breaks loose as Aemond, feeling slighted by Lucerys, retaliates by mentioning their heritage and promptly kicks their asses. Rhaenyra takes them back to Dragonstone and Alicent visits Viserys in his bedchambers, where she misinterprets his last words as wanting Aegon to succeed him. Viserys passes away, and by the morning Alicent and Otto begin a plan to crown Aegon. They try to recruit Rhaenys to their side alongside other lords to swear fealty to the new king. Once they have the Red Keep under control, they announce a ceremony at the Dragon Pit where Aegon is crowned King of the 7 Kingdoms with Aegon the Conqueror's crown and all the royal trinkets to give him legitimacy. Rhaenys, having escaped the Red Keep and unwilling to swear loyalty to Aegon, flees King's Landing upon her dragon Meleys. She brings word to Rhaenyra of her father's death and Aegon usurping her. Due to the stress, Rhaenyra goes into premature labour and miscarries. Daemon gathers the War Council in preparation of fighting for Rhaenyra's claim, and Sir Eric of the Kingsguard arrives at Dragonstone with Viserys' crown. Daemon then crowns Rhaenyra as queen. Otto arrives at Dragonstone bringing peace terms and for Rhaenyra to relinquish her claim. She refuses. Lord Corlys pledges his allegiance to Rhaenyra. This is mainly bolstered by the fact that Laenor's daughters will be marrying Lucerys and Jacaerys, so Velaryon blood and name will live on, a bit of course correction so to speak. Seeking to cement further alliances, Rhaenyra sends Jace to treat with the Arryns of the Vale and the Starks of the North, and she sends Lucerys, the younger son, to treat with Lord Baratheon of Storm's End because it's closer in proximity to Dragonstone. Unfortunately for Lucerys, he is greeted by Aemond, who had arrived at Storm's End before him. With no real power or opportunities to offer the Lord of Storm's End, Lucerys and his mother's proposal is rejected. On his flight back home, Aemond attacks the young prince, seeking revenge for his eye. This does go sideways because instead of maiming the young prince, Aemond's dragon Vhagar, in a fit of rage, absolutely destroys the smaller dragon and its rider. News reaches Rhaenyra of her son's death and the war has truly begun. And that concludes our Season 1 recap of House of the Dragon. Be sure to check out our review channel for the upcoming Season 2, as we'll be reviewing those episodes and dissecting what they kept and what they changed. Thanks for watching.